Hi, everyone. Welcome to this special episode of Lending Leaders, where you're getting two hosts for the price of one. So Alayna and I, instead of dividing our forces like normal, are back today to talk about the recent MBA Annual Conference right here in Philadelphia, our thoughts from the conference, now that you're fully recovered 2 weeks back, COVID's bad and everything, on my end, I guess.
Yeah, just you.
Just me. So, anyways, would love to, Alayna, thanks for being on the podcast. Thanks for everything you do for the podcast. But how do you feel about the conference? This is kind of a unique one where it brings in the whole industry once a year. It's always nice to kind of take the temperature of things. Would love to hear kind of your thoughts from the few days.
Yeah, I think our experience is, a little unique. I think for us, it was a really good show. One, we threw a giant event. So that was fun.
Threw a giant event, yeah.
Yes. I threw a giant event and got a lot of people on board, and we were able to have, honestly, just such a wonderful time. And I think that kind of propelled us forward towards a really good show.
Yeah.
And one thing I think I really noticed for this show this year, and honestly, even in recent years, is it's a really great show for connecting with people that you have an existing relationship with, or maybe you've connected with on LinkedIn, you haven't gotten a chance to meet in person. Yeah. But it's not a good show for like that cold sales reach out to try and get a meeting with someone you've never met before. Yeah.
It's just so spread out, right? It's a very spread out show. It's always in a city, and people are in hotels. People aren't necessarily on the conference hall. So it's definitely the record for step count out of any show.
Yes. Too. And I think that's definitely something that, as you're planning for 2024 is something to think about in who you're sending, how you organize yourselves for the conference and all of that. But it was my second MBA. So it was really nice. I got to attend Empower for the first time on Saturday. So that was a wonderful time. MBA did a great job with that. It was a lot of fun being able to connect with some of my mortgage friends on Saturday and just kind of get that before the show experience. What was the highlight for you?
Our event, I think, was great. Being able to have a hometown show, bring in so many people, and just see the team kind of doing their thing, right? It was very nice to, it was my daughter's birthday that Sunday, so I just kind of showed up for the event, and that was it. And you did such a phenomenal job, and everyone did a great job with things that, I think my role at shows used to be I had to go there and pull leads and get information, and my effort was all that the company was going to get out of it. But now I'm kind of the vibe check guy, which I really appreciate because there are a lot of other people doing things. So a lot more people are wanting to meet with us in a way that wasn't the case a few years ago starting out. So it's definitely been a switch in a good way. It's nice seeing so many people that it's nice seeing people in another space. It's kind of a weird thing having the whole industry transported to a bunch of hotels for a few days.
Yeah.
Too. So.
And it's definitely interesting to see the casual things that happen, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the night being at the same bar as a bunch of other mortgage industry professionals, right? That wasn't planned, that wasn't structured. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that's really common at a show like MBA.
Walking out of Reading Terminal Market, and one of our partners, Rob Katz, is walking out with his vegan pastrami that he had 5 of during the show because he's vegan, and he's I haven't had pastrami in years. He told me at the event. So
that sounds lovely.
Shout out to you, Rob Katz. Hope you enjoyed your sandwiches. So that was really fun. It was definitely interesting because I feel even more so than last year, the tone was pretty subdued.
Yes.
Fewer people in the conference hall. The big kind of mantra from the conference is stay alive till 25. We're in an environment industry-wise where interest rates hit 8% while we were at the conference. Things aren't necessarily going to be improving fast. So I think it really kind of colored the experience a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to more than a few people that were at the show as kind of their last event with their company. So there was more than a few people that were aware that maybe they were there and they were kind of job hunting for the next thing because...
Or people that got laid off a week after and had no idea.
Yeah. So I think there's definitely some of that, which is also, don't do that to people.
Yeah.
Don't send them to a show to do a bunch of leads and then get rid of them the next week, please.
Yeah. Be better.
Be better. But I think that's definitely, it definitely puts a more somber note on, I think, what for us I kind of felt like, it's our 10-year, it's a
Yeah.
hometown show, we threw a big event. Like, this was kind of out of the box for us. It was the first time we had done something like that, and we knew when it was announced in Philly we were going to do something.
Yeah.
But I think that definitely made it a little bit more interesting for us and gave us a different tone of the conference than what you saw maybe on the conference room floor and all of that.
I kind of viewed it as our bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
Bat mitzvah. So, we could say one thing that was interesting to me, I'll let you go first. Walking the hall, looking at vendors and things in the industry, it's always interesting to see what is, the new thing that's there. What kind of stood out to you about those providers?
I think for me, the thing that kind of stood out is, a lot of people did beautiful booths. I always like to look at that stuff. I think we're seeing a lot more LOSs in the market, a lot of people that are looking at their baseline tech stack because we have time right now. And I think that's kind of the vibe that I got is those people were having a little bit more in regards to conversations. And I think that's definitely something that I think we're going to see as a continuing theme in the industry. But overall, I mean, I would love to see more exciting booths. On like a personal note is like, please just like a table with your branded tablecloth is lovely, but you can do better. And I believe in you. That's my subtle dig at the people who just put out you spent a lot of money for a booth, make it look good.
For me, every other booth said data or AI. It was stood out for sure. And it was interesting because I didn't really know what half the solutions were too. And I think we've seen this at different times in the industry, where, right before TRID was coming in 2015, people knew there was a need to be a collaboration portal, right? So there was one conference I was at, there was 15 different portals, and I think 2 of them are still around. So it was just really interesting to see that trend and that change when, blockchain and real estate was a thing for a hot second before, all the crypto issues kind of, came crashing down. So it's curious to see what AI and data stays, what sticks around. I think there are a lot of concerns about it. I was at some lender sessions where they were talking about kind of, the good and bad in AI and what can happen. So that was definitely, the tech du jour. And it's going to be interesting to see how people use it, what sticks around, and, in a year or two, are there still that many, AI vendors?
Yeah, I think there's so many AI providers out there. And I think, you're definitely right. There are a lot of them on the floor. There's a lot of data providers. I think some of the things for me is like AI is, I feel like, really tough in regards to financial information. I'm a little weary of it in that I'm like just on a personal note. But I think for marketing and sales and all of that, I think there's a huge opportunity for AI. It's something, we use a lot within our marketing team and within our sales team. I use ChatGPT almost every day, for personal stuff, just to be like, hey, can you make sure my grammar's right? And all of that. And I think that's definitely something we're going to see more of. I'm speaking at a Curin actually the week this is going out, and of the 3 sessions, 2 of them are AI based.
One thing when I was talking in a lender session, they were talking about kind of the security risk from AI. And especially, people set up technology, and then if you want to, you have to train AI, right? You have to give it data to go off of. So are you providing consumer data, borrower data, social security numbers? Are all of these getting provided without really realizing where it's going and what's happening to it? So I think there are a lot of very real concerns, and I kind of hope a lot of folks, walk before they run. That's kind of how we've seen it here at LodeStar. We're using it into marketing and customer service a little bit, and then working on some other applications down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a purpose for it, and I think very similar to how a CRM is or how any other system is if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out, and I think AI is no different in regards to that. And how you set it up with technology.
Do you feel, speaking of technology, do you feel like people's perception or appetite for different technology has changed?
Oh, absolutely. I think in the the up market, we were seeing a lot of people say, well, we need sales tools to help us compete and to get as many deals as possible in the pipeline. You know, we saw our CRMs, our, chat bots, all of that front of end sales and marketing pieces, I think we're invested into really heavily. Not necessarily fully built out, but they were purchased, they were set up like that POS system. And I'm really seeing, our sale was kind of hard during that time period, right? People weren't looking at operational challenges. And I think we've kind of seen this shift into can we do better operationally? And I think that's something that, I've been speaking a lot on, and I think other people are starting to speak a lot on and pivot their money to, right? Well, there aren't any deals out there, so I'm not going to go spend money to get them. I need to look internally to see how I can improve my operation to save money.
That was one thing I heard from a lot of lenders, almost bemoaning the fact that, hey, all this automation hasn't saved me a dime. It still costs as much as it ever has to originate a loan. Part of that's volume, but also I think to your point, Alayna, that they're automating the wrong thing. If you're looking at the front end of marketing and sales, you're not going to see the same cost savings from that. It may help you get more deals, but you're not going to see the same cost savings from that than automating on the operational side. And it's less sexy. It's harder to do. It's less obvious. I was talking to another partner of ours last week, and they were saying that basically you're not going to see a lift in automating a task if you don't automate more than like 50% of it or something like that. Like they basically said, if you take away 20% of a person's role, you will not fire them, right? You will may or may not reallocate them to something else. So unless you're able to remove a role completely, or so much that you can really use a person for something else, you're not going to say that same type of lift.
Yeah. And I think there's definitely, when you start to see, I think as we come back, and I'm working on a presentation on this right now, actually, is as we start to see volume come back, I think we're going to see you should be looking at technology instead of hiring decisions to see if you can expand the workload of, let's say, an underwriter, right? Yeah. Can that underwriter now produce 150 loans instead of 100 loans? So then maybe instead of 3 underwriters, you need 2. Yeah. Right. And I think that's where you save the money.
10 hours overtime, you're not paying any overtime or something like that when things get really crazy. So.
Yeah. And I think that's really the conversation we should be looking at is, we're at low staffing levels. So even if you're not investing in the tech now, you can invest the time in researching the tech and making sure that when volume does come back, maybe you call LodeStar and say, hey, we now have volume. We want to implement your system.
Right. There was one meeting that we were in too, one lender, they were saying, we don't have a lot of volume, but we're very busy, right? And I think that was a good way of saying it. Like, there's a lot we're doing because we're getting ready for new things to pick back up again, but we're not busy with volume, with loans coming in.
Yeah. I think that's a very astute point.
Yeah, I like the way that they put that together. They were from New Jersey, so they were pretty direct. But, so my question for you, I think one of our mutual concerns going into the conference is how would people react to Philadelphia? So how did Philadelphia do on this show?
I think Philadelphia did well. I think there were definitely some moments that I've heard of that happened, which they've happened at every show I've heard. I heard very similar moments from Nashville. So if we're going to be honest, I don't view too negatively on them. But I think everyone had a lot of fun in Philly. People seemed to be fine walking around. I think Philly had the best food, honestly. Sorry, Nashville. I think Nashville has great food. But you can't walk for lunch to Reading Terminal Market and get some of the best food.
Literally anything.
Anywhere for cheap, too, right? Especially, I think what this industry needed was a great $10 Danick sandwich.
I think Philadelphia did better than I thought.
Yes.
Too. It was funny. I was walking from the hotel to the conference center one morning, and it was a busy street. And I lived in New York for 10 years. I'm used to being around cities, and I was about to cross. But then I walked back, and a guy looked next to me. He was like, yeah, it's not worth your life. And my reaction was like, clearly, you don't live in the city. You're not from around here. Like, this is just how you have to cross the street. Like, the cars will stop, but you have to get yourself out there. So I don't think people realized how lucky we were with the weather.
Yes.
The Phillies won 2 games while we were there too and didn't do a whole lot else after. But
it was a bummer.
Yeah.
I think that was one thing that was really funny to me is I heard some lenders actually went to the Phillies Diamondbacks games and they were Diamondbacks fans. And they were like, we got massively heckled in a way that we weren't prepared for. And I was like, you wore opposing team apparel to a Phillies game during the playoffs. But also the thing that I don't think people quite realize that I shared with them is Phillies fans go into a drawing to have the chance to purchase tickets.
Yeah.
And like, there is not enough tickets for everyone who wants to go to the playoff games.
Yeah.
And compared to the Diamondbacks arena that had empty seats and you could buy a $7 ticket in the highest. No, those highest tickets in Philly were going for $150, $200, if not more.
Oh, no, I thought it was $400 minimum. Yeah.
And like that I think is something that I think makes Philly special too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Fan is short for fanatic, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We love the Phillies.
Yeah, I heard less of the awful stuff that I thought could have happened. A lot more of people's perceptions of the area than anything else. I think people had really nice things to say about kind of the historical nature of Philly and the architecture and things like that are unique. There's a lot of history in Philly, so it was nice that people were checking out and doing those types of things. So it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I was very nervous for how spread out the show was, and also people's perception of the city. But top marks for Philadelphia, so I was happy about that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people weren't prepared for how big Philly is in comparison to Nashville. Like, the Philadelphia Convention Center is maybe 4 times the size of the Nashville Convention Center.
There was a whole building that wasn't even the right building.
Yeah.
Like 2 blocks over.
Like, in comparison, I used to work in, events, and I was one of the things that we got was citywide convention data. We're at pre-2020, I think this is a 5,000 person conference.
Yeah.
Philadelphia can support 70,000 to 100,000 person conferences. So this is definitely one of the smaller ones for the city itself.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, it felt like you were walking miles to get to the convention floor.
Yeah.
But if you walked outside, it was faster. If you walked in the building, it took forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think I'm excited for Denver next year. I think it's going to be a good show. I will say the one thing I'm already concerned about is the alcohol difference for people.
The altitude.
Because of altitude.
And the walking too. Yeah. 15,000 steps a day, mile high.
So I will be packing oxygen for next year. I took it at Snug last year, and let me tell you, it helped so much with my asthma and everything. So I will have oxygen with me in the little thing. Laugh at me all you want. That's my that's my pro tip for 2024 in Denver.
It's just comfy shoes.
Comfy shoes.
It will be a lot colder.
Oh, it's going to be so cold in Denver. It's like the weekend before Halloween.
Anyways, so final thoughts on the conference as we wrap up here.
I think the biggest thing I took away is, like Philadelphia, the mortgage industry right now is kind of an underdog. I think, we're the wild card.
Yeah.
But I think there's a very similar story to Philadelphia sports, how Philly always comes back. I'm trying here with this metaphor. Stop laughing.
No, like it. No one likes us. We don't care. The mortgage industry. I was like, that
checks
tracks.
out.
Yeah, that tracks.
And I just think it's so important to kind of take that message. Sometimes the companies that you least expect are going to do the best, right? There are people that will thrive in this market, and we're going to see, I think, some new top players come out of this market.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be some consolidation, some shifting.
Right.
But we're not going anywhere.
No, and I think, stay alive or survive till 25 misses the point, because it's more about how can you set yourself up for success? How can you, cover your downside, be solvent. That's super important. But then, like, how can you take advantage of this so you're coming out, at twice the speed of everyone else?
How can you thrive in 25, right? If you're surviving until 25.
Yeah, right.
But how can we set ourselves up to thrive in 25? I don't think anyone expects to thrive next year, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think there's an opportunity there. And I think there are some people who, in speaking to, they really saw that as an opportunity. And there were others that kind of looked at it as just, oh, well, everything's bad.
Yeah.
And I think your mindset matters here.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, you did the intro. I can do the outro if you'd like.
Sure.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you all next week with our regularly scheduled programming. One of us will be hosting. We're not sure who yet.
There's a lot of fun episodes coming up.
We do have a lot of fun episodes up.
We probably saw a bunch of you all who actually listen to our podcast, so thank you for coming to the event or meeting with us throughout the show.
Yeah, and we're looking for guests for the back half of season 4. So if that is something you're interested in, let us know. We'd be happy to chat with you and see if we can get you on one of these podcasts.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much, and we'll see you next week.